The cross wasn't an accident. It was God's plan. What's interesting about the life and ministry of Jesus is that you go back and you look at when you look at the Old Testament, there are 300 prophecies that were predicted in the Old Testament that ultimately comes to pass in the New Testament, meaning they were fulfilled in Jesus. If even one of these 300 prophecies came true, it would be miraculous, but all 300 of them came true. Particularly the birth and the death and the resurrection and the life of the ministry of Jesus, these prophecies came true. Another correlation that you're going to see with the cross not being an accident was that in Isaiah 53, it is repeated and proven, that prophecy in Isaiah 53 is proven in what we just read in John chapter 19. There's a correlation between the Old Testament, Isaiah 53, and John 19. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John tell us specifically. They tell us specifically that as you're reading about the narrative of the crucifixion, don't get so caught up in the horror of it, but take a step back and see that in the midst of this moment, in the midst of the crucifixion of Jesus, God has an overarching plan that starts in Genesis in the beginning and goes all the way to Malachi, the last prophet that we hear before the 400 years of silence before the New Testament starts, before Jesus comes. That God had a plan all along, and then he sent Jesus. So don't just focus on the horror of the cross, but realize that from the beginning, from the sin of Adam and Eve in the garden, this was God's plan to redeem humanity. God is bringing about this restoration, this redemption, so that he can restore humanity, so that he can restore you, so he can restore me. And they say it over and over again. This happened, and this happened that it might be fulfilled in the Scripture, and that happened that it might be fulfilled in the Scripture. Look, folks, the crucifixion did not catch God off guard. He had planned it that way from the beginning. And you know what? It didn't catch Jesus off guard either. So the cross was God's original plan.